Hello, everybody. So I want to talk about theft for a second, and so more specifically, payment fraud. So payment fraud is the phenomenon of somebody using a stolen credit card to make a purchase online, and this is a very big problem in the travel industry, as I'm sure you all know. Such a big problem that actually I guarantee that everybody in this room has a fraud management team. This team can be of one person up to hundreds in the largest airlines. And so yeah, I just want to kind of dive into and give you a little bit of context of how this problem is being solved today, and maybe some improvements that can be made. So as I'm sure that you all know, the travel industry isn't known for having the most agile IT resources in the world, and this has created some friction, especially for these fraud management teams. So these teams are now using what we call quote-unquote legacy systems to be able to detect fraudulent transactions. So what I mean by legacy systems here is basically they're taking a look at less than 100 variables and using statistical rules to be able to detect which transactions are going to become fraud and which won't. So a quick example here. As I said, I'm from Guatemala, so I guess I'm allowed to make this reference. But let's say you're realizing that transactions which are being made with a card that was issued in Mexico and the IP address is coming from Guatemala, you might realize that actually 90% of those transactions turn out to be fraudulent, and then you're going to create a rule which blocks all those transactions. So this type of, let's say, rule setting is actually having a huge cost for the industry. So this cost takes two different forms. First is, of course, the rules aren't perfect, so some fraud does get through, and this is this $1.3 billion here. This is how much it's costing. These are in the form of quote-unquote chargebacks, and it's growing at 15% CAGR, so it's really exploding. And then, of course, the rules also aren't perfect, meaning that you're blocking some customers which are legitimate customers. And in this particular case, it's even worse because 65% of the time, they don't come back. And that means that you're losing the entire lifetime value of that client. And so the estimated cost of that is $6.5 billion a year, also growing at 13 to 15% CAGR. So what are we doing to solve this issue? There we go. So within Nethone, what we did is that we realized that all these purchases are being made online. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to be focusing on 100 variables when you have so much more data available to you. So we created some technology which allows us to pick up over 5,000 different attributes about a user as soon as they land on your page. And we also realized that using statistical rules, let's say this was developed in the 18th century, so there's really cool stuff that's been developed in the 20th century and now 21st, which is machine learning. So what we're doing is actually using machine learning to be able to correlate these 5,000 different attributes to fraudulent behavior, and then basically giving a live recommendation to our clients right before the purchase is ever made. And both the supplementary data and the machine learning together have allowed us to get much better precision. So that means that the fraud that actually, this is a particular case of the third largest online travel agency in Brazil. And so what we did is we actually were able to lower the chargeback, so the fraud that got through, by 6%. But more importantly is this number here. We were actually able to reduce the amount of rejections that were made, so clients that were being refused, by 23%. Typically, reject rates can go anywhere from 4 to 10%. So imagine if you're rejecting 10% of your traffic and we're able to decrease that by 23%, that's 2.3% supplementary revenue top line. And this is what we're generating for this particular client. They're not the only person that we're working with. We're also working with the likes of Azul, LOT Polish Airlines, and for those of you who know luxury, we're also working with Farfetch, which is the largest luxury, the fastest growing luxury company in the world currently. Yeah, come talk to us if you want to prevent theft.